Have you ever wondered how a vast, untouched land became the world's greatest superpower? Our journey begins in the depths of the oceans, where adventure, mystery, and chance changed human history forever. Today, we dive into the secrets of the American continent, from the very moment explorers first stepped onto its golden shores. Fasten your seatbelts because the real Game of Thrones is about to begin, and the story is full of wars, gold, and freedom. In 1492, the bold Italian sailor Christopher Columbus led 3 wooden ships across the dark Atlantic Ocean. He was searching for a new trade route to India, driven by endless curiosity and dreams of immense wealth. Instead of Asia, the enchanting shores of the Bahamas appeared, announcing the birth of a whole new era. Columbus believed he had reached the East Indies, never realizing he had opened the gates to the New World. Years passed, and in 1607, English ships docked along the Virginia riverbanks to establish the Jamestown Colony. There, the settlers met the native chief Powhatan and his legendary daughter Pocahontas in a fierce struggle for survival. The immigrants faced extreme starvation, deadly diseases, and a harsh winter that almost ended their dreams. But they finally found their lifeline in cultivating green gold, the tobacco plant that saved their economy. In 1620, the ship Mayflower sailed carrying Puritans fleeing the persecution of the English Church. These immigrants, known as the Pilgrim Fathers, landed in cold Plymouth and began establishing a society ruled by law and faith. With the help of Native Americans who taught them farming and hunting, they survived a deadly winter and celebrated the first Thanksgiving together. That moment was a rare embodiment of peace and mutual cooperation before long conflicts ignited later. Over the decades, the British established 13 prosperous colonies, but tension began to boil under the surface due to heavy taxes. The colonists shouted their famous slogan, "No taxation without representation," rejecting London's dominance. On a cold night in 1773, angry Boston rebels boarded British ships and dumped tons of tea into the harbor. This event was the spark that ignited the Great Revolution, making turning back absolutely impossible. Great leaders gathered in Philadelphia in 1776 to declare the birth of a free nation subject to no royal crown. The talented young Thomas Jefferson stood and crafted with his legendary words the historic American Declaration of Independence. He wrote that all men are created equal, endowed with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thus, the popular revolution transformed from a mere armed rebellion into a sacred war for human principles. The brave General George Washington led a humble army of volunteers against the most powerful military empire on earth. His men fought brutal battles amidst snow and hunger, but their faith in freedom was stronger than British bullets. Thanks to his military genius and French support, Washington achieved decisive victory at the historic Battle of Yorktown in 1781. The world recognized independent America, and this great leader was chosen as the first president of the young United States. In 1803, the clever President Thomas Jefferson made a bold decision that changed the geography of the American continent forever. He purchased vast territories of land from the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte for an incredibly small sum. This transaction, known as the Louisiana Purchase, doubled the size of the young United States with a single stroke of a pen. Jefferson sent explorers Lewis and Clark to chart these wild, unknown territories and reach the mysterious Pacific Ocean. Britain did not easily accept the loss of its former colonies, leading to the outbreak of a brutal new war in 1812. British soldiers invaded Washington, D.C. and burned the White House, shocking and saddening the American public. During the heavy bombardment of Fort McHenry, writer Francis Scott Key was inspired to pen the famous American national anthem. The young nation stood resilient once more, emerging from the war with a unified national identity and greater strength. In 1848, gold glinted in the streams of California, sparking an unprecedented global frenzy. Hundreds of thousands of adventurers and families abandoned their homes and rushed westward in search of quick wealth and a promising future. Entire boom towns arose from nothing in weeks, transforming San Francisco into a bustling, noisy international port. However, this rapid expansion came at the cost of destroying native lands and violently displacing their tribes. While the economy grew, a deep moral and economic rift threatened to tear the American nation apart from within. The agricultural South relied entirely on the brutal system of slavery to cultivate vast cotton fields and double the profits of wealthy landowners. In contrast, the industrial North advocated for freedom and the abolition of this inhumane system that contradicted the principles of independence. Political and legal disputes escalated, making a massive explosion only a matter of time. In 1861, Abraham Lincoln was elected president, a man distinguished by his tall stature, wisdom, and devotion to national unity. Southern states rejected his anti-slavery stance and decided to secede to form their own nation under the Confederacy. Lincoln bravely declared that the Union could not be divided and that secession was illegal and must be resisted with force. Thus began the American Civil War, the bloodiest and most devastating conflict in all of U.S. history. Armies fought brutal battles, and the year 1863 witnessed the historic Battle of Gettysburg, which completely turned the tide of the war. There, President Lincoln delivered his legendary address, emphasizing a new birth of freedom and true democracy. In the same year, Lincoln issued the historic Emancipation Proclamation, granting millions of enslaved people their legal freedom. Thousands of newly freed black men eagerly joined the Union Army, fighting bravely for their long-lost dignity. In the spring of 1865, the Southern Army finally surrendered, and the Civil War ended with a landslide victory for the Union and freedom. Joy filled the streets of northern cities, but it was short-lived and suddenly turned into a horrific national tragedy. While Lincoln was watching a play, a fanatical Southern actor sneaked up and assassinated him. Lincoln died as a martyr for unity and freedom, leaving behind a nation slowly trying to heal its bleeding wounds. In the late 19th century, America experienced a massive industrial boom and unprecedented technological development. Industrial titans like John D. Rockefeller in oil and Andrew Carnegie in steel emerged, accumulating unimaginable fortunes. Railroads stretched like iron fists, connecting the east and west coasts and facilitating the movement of goods and people. Yet behind this golden glitter and luxurious mansions, millions of workers and immigrants lived in extreme poverty and harsh working conditions. When the flames of World War I ignited in Europe in 1914, America tried to remain neutral and avoid the destructive conflict. However, German submarine attacks on American merchant ships forced President Woodrow Wilson to declare war in 1917. Millions of brave American soldiers flooded the battlefields of Europe, tipping the scales in favor of an Allied victory. Following the war, the United States emerged as a global superpower, whose role in shaping the new world order could not be ignored. America entered the Roaring Twenties, an era of economic prosperity and wide cultural and social liberation. Loud jazz music filled speakeasies, and women wore modern, liberating fashions that challenged old traditions and restrictions. Cars, telephones, and radios spread into every home, and financial prosperity seemed destined to last forever. Wall Street was boiling with speculation and skyrocketing stock prices, convinced that poverty was completely eliminated. Suddenly and without warning, the beautiful dream turned into a terrifying nightmare in October 1929 when the stock market crashed. The fortunes of millions vanished in hours, and thousands of banks closed their doors, declaring complete bankruptcy. The American street drowned in suffocating unemployment, and starving citizens stood in long lines for a simple loaf of bread. Despair and frustration ruled the nation, and giant factories stood like silent ghosts mourning their past glory. In 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt took office, promising the American people a New Deal to salvage the collapsed economy. He delivered his famous fireside radio chats, breathing hope and optimism into the hearts of millions of desperate families. Roosevelt launched massive public works to build dams and roads, employing millions of jobless citizens and reviving factories. Gradually, America began to recover, and the people discovered the power of unity and wise leadership in times of crisis. In December 1941, Japanese warplanes launched a sudden, devastating attack on the American fleet at Pearl Harbor. America shook with shock and anger, prompting Roosevelt to officially declare entry into World War II against the Axis powers. Civilian factories immediately pivoted to produce tanks and warplanes with massive manufacturing power that astonished the world. American soldiers fought in the Pacific jungles and the beaches of occupied Europe to break the back of fascism and Nazism. In the summer of 1945, the new president, Harry Truman, made the most perilous and controversial decision in human history. He ordered the dropping of atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki to end the war immediately. Terrifying atomic mushroom clouds rose, showcasing a destructive scientific power the Earth had never witnessed. Japan surrendered and World War II ended, paving the way for America to emerge as the undisputed nuclear superpower. Soon, America entered a silent and dangerous ideological conflict against the Soviet Union, known as the Cold War. The nuclear arms race ignited, and both camps competed fiercely to project their influence in every corner of the globe. The conflict extended into the heavens through the thrilling space race for extraterrestrial dominance. In 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong achieved the impossible by stepping onto the moon, declaring a historic technological victory for America. In the 1960s, America faced a great internal test of its moral conscience, justice, and human equality. The brave Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. led the civil rights movement, demanding an end to heinous racial discrimination against Black Americans. In Washington, D.C. in 1963, he raised his powerful voice, delivering his legendary, globally renowned speech, "I have a dream." His words inspired millions and forced the government to pass historic laws guaranteeing equality and civil rights for all. By the end of the 20th century, America led the world into an entirely new era, the age of digital technology and the Internet. Giant companies like Apple and Microsoft were founded in Silicon Valley, radically changing how humans live and communicate. Creative entrepreneurs like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates led the personal computer revolution that entered every home and office. Thus, American power shifted from classic military superiority to software dominance and limitless technological innovation. Today, America stands at the crossroads of modern history, facing massive and new political and technological challenges. From Columbus's simple wooden ships to cutting-edge space rockets, America's story remains an exciting human journey filled with deep lessons. We hope you enjoyed this thrilling historical voyage and that it sparked your curiosity to learn more. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to join us on our next exciting historical journeys.